What up?
What's up? How are you?
Blessed. How about yourself?
Oh, listen, thank God. All good, all good. Thank you for having me.
No doubt. Is your Wi-Fi on?
It is. Am I a little shaky?
Just for a second, but it may have to take some time to get used to. It'll probably work itself out, but you look good now.
All right, let me know. I can move inside if necessary.
Okay. Yeah, it's all good at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. This is episode 121, History Lessons with the legendary Ali D. Like I said, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to be here. Checking out your Instagram and everybody that you've been interviewing and associated with. I'm blessed to be a part of that team. So thank you.
No doubt. No doubt. We're going to get into a little history lesson, take it all the way back, and then work our way up to what you currently have going on. If you could take the viewers back to where you were born and raised.
Born and raised New York City, right in Manhattan. Born and raised. 1970.
1970. Good year.
Good year. Good year. Good times.
Absolutely. What was a day in the life like as a teenager of Ali D growing up in New York?
Well, I'll tell you, it was pretty crazy. So I went to private school on the Upper East Side. My family was a very theatrical family. Classical music, ballet, theater, all of that stuff. And basically, in, I want to say, early 83, well, actually 82, I used to love disco music. So I used to listen to Kiss FM when it was 92.3. And, they played disco and dance music. And then Saturday night, they had, the Rap Attack, DJ Red Alert. And so that was my first real exposure to hip hop, to rap, was listening to his show. And then I remember I used to record it on my tape deck, and I used to record his show. And I hear this song, 2 years ago, a friend of mine asked me to say some MC rhyme. And I was like, what is this? This is unbelievable. What is this? This is changing my life right now, hearing this record. And I fell in love with rap. I Run DMC, Sucker MCs. I fell in love with rap. And it was through some crazy instances and crazy moments that year, I got exposed to breakdancing, and at the highest level. Basically, I was actually throwing a party at a church in the gymnasium for my class because I was leaving the school I was at to go to another school, and literally, like, the DJ, I had this kid DJing, his system blew out, and all the kids were like, "Oh, this party is lame," we're going to leave. And I was like, no, don't leave. So I was on 74th. It was called Yahoo's Church, and it's still there. 74th between 1st and 2nd Avenue. I go to the corner to pick up some chips and soda and whatnot. And literally I see these kids breakdancing on the street. And I went up to them and I was like, listen, can I give you guys like $20 each, and you come up and, perform for, my party and try to get it back up and going again. One of the kids was named Israel. His breakdance name was Kid Swipe. He was in the movie Delivery Boys. Connected to Rocksteady and New York City Breakers, and unbelievable dancer. And literally, my mom, who had a dance school, came to make sure everything was cool. She sees them, falls in love with it also, and literally starts having them teach at her school. Every Friday they would come and teach breakdance. And literally from the time I was 13, probably until I'd say 18, 19, I'd hop on the 3rd Avenue bus after school. I'd, throw my clothes off. I'd put on my burgundy leaves, my shell toes, and I'd take the 3rd Avenue bus straight up 3rd Avenue from, 62nd, whatever it was. Get off on 116th. They'd all meet me on the corner because at the time there were not a lot of white kids up in Harlem, in East Harlem at, 1983, 84. I mean, I don't remember seeing anybody up there. And they'd all meet me on the corner because they were like, listen, if you try to come up here without us meeting you on the corner, there might be some issues. And literally we would break dance, boogie, on the Lexington Avenue projects, 114th, 115th. And it was an incredible, cultural lesson, me, again, growing up on the Upper East Side, exposed to not urban music at all. I fell in love with it. And I loved being a student, and I loved, studying and learning. And these guys became my very good friends, really very good friends. And it was an amazing transfer of culture as well, because not only would I go up and hang out with them on weekends and spend, sleep over and all that stuff and, learn from them, they'd come down to my house, on the Upper East Side, and I take them to restaurants on Madison Avenue and this and that. And, they get exposed to different foods they never ate. And by the way, I got exposed to food I never ate when I hung out with them too. So it was an incredible experience, especially, back then when hip hop was really, really gaining speed and gaining momentum. And I remember, 86, 87, 88, everyone was like, oh, rap will be over in a couple of years. And then I remember early 90s, oh, rap will be over in a couple of years. And then then it got to a point where they're like, okay, hip hop is here to stay. Hip hop has become a genre of music that will never go away.
Right.
So that was the day of my life as a teenager. I mean, I was hanging out in the projects and hanging out on the Upper East Side. It was crazy. I lost a lot of friends that I went to school with because, back then, the climate, which is crazy that the racial climate hasn't seemed to have improved over decades and decades. But, my first rap group that I had was a black and white rap group. I met Zone TDK, my partner, through breakdancing. He was from the Bronx. And, we were like, wow, music has brought us together. Two dudes that you never thought would have linked up. We linked up and we made a great record. And we talked about unity and how, again, two kids from two sides can unite, and how music is the common bond, and they can share and learn about each other. And it was pretty amazing. But I lost a lot of friends, because even from the way I used to dress, I listen, some of my friends' parents were like, you can't hang out with Ali. He's a bad influence, because I had Puerto Rican friends and black friends and Dominican friends. And they all thought that they were all criminals. And by the way, listen, some of them were stick-up kids, and that's just what it was. But
right.
but they were all great kids. They were
right.
all great friends and good people. And so, growing up, it was kind of crazy. Again, I think about it, and I'm so blessed to have had the experiences that I had. With all of these great people. I mean, I remember them all. I've lost touch with some of them. Some of them I still see, by the way. Like, some of them still dance, in Manhattan. I mean, not during COVID, but like, they still dance on Fifth Avenue. And what's so funny is that, like, their little kids are now grown up and they're dancing. And, it's like, I've become old, I guess,
Right.
But it's pretty amazing.
You talked about meeting Zone TDK through breakdancing. At what point did you guys get serious about rapping? Did you shop a demo? Take me back to the early formation of that group.
Listen, so my first demos, I actually did in 86. So probably around 84, 85, I took some money that I made from dancing. So I used to dance on the street too. So I took some money that I made from dancing. There were basically two crews that were dancing on the street that you would always see in Manhattan. And one was called Float Committee and the other was called Breeze Team. So Zone kind of led up Bree's team, and Flow Committee was a whole nother crew. But so I made my first demo with a Tascam, 4-track. I think it was called a 244, a keyboard and a drum machine. And I used to rap about the kids I went to school with, my Jappy girlfriends and things like that. And I actually got offered a record deal from B-Boy Records, Rock Candy. This is before Scott LaRock got shot. I did shows with Boogie Down Productions, which was like crazy. Sitting with them, like, I don't know, we were at some crazy club in Brooklyn and we're like at this dinner table, and it was just surreal, thinking back to it. I remember the owner of the label, or the president of the label, this guy, Tony Anthony was his name, came over to talk to my mom about the record deal. And I remember after he left, I was like to my mom, I was like so excited about it. And my mom was basically like, anybody that's got to drop that many people's names, in a conversation is like, something's up. Like he was going out of his way to talk about what he could do and who he knows and this and that, let alone the record contract probably had like 15 album options. It was like, kind of crazy. But so after that, I obviously had the itch. I wanted to do it. I wanted to rap. And, Zone became a very good friend of mine, and I was always out dancing with them. And Zone rapped. So literally, I'd say probably 87 and a half, 88, we were like, yo, let's form a rap group, and we're not the old school and we're not the new school. And there was leaders of the new school. We're like, we're the next school. We're gonna change the way people, think about racial relations and how two kids can get together through dance and music. We made our demo. We got a producer, this dude Floyd Fisher. How did I meet Floyd Fisher? Oh my God! Now you got me going way back. I met Floyd Fisher. So Floyd Fisher was a dance producer. He actually produced a freestyle artist named Sarah, and she had that song "Summertime."
Mm-hmm.
So total like freestyle record. Floyd basically and I co-produced the record together. He had a studio that was like on West 53rd Street, like a little studio, not like a big studio with a big board. It was a little studio. And we would go in there and we would just make these records. And I remember we went and got a manager. And what's funny is that like my parents, my mom had passed away in 87. My dad wasn't involved in anything. I didn't use any of their relationships. It was all like, I'm doing this on my own. And of course, you get screwed when when you're young and dumb and doing it on your own. But we got a manager named Ken Greengrass, an old school dude. And matter of fact, so his younger dude, who was like our day-to-day guy, is this guy, William Durella, who was awesome. And William Durella is like a big manager. Like he started to manage like Black Eyed Peas and like he became huge, and he and I are actually still friends, 32 years later, 31 years later. But I remember we got him as a manager. We had like 3 songs on the demo. And I remember being in Times Square with Zone TDK. We were like dancing in Times Square, and I had a beeper. And my beeper goes off, and it's the manager's office. And I remember going to a payphone, calling him up, and it was William. And William's like, yo, Chrysalis Records, just offered you a record deal. And I can remember like it was yesterday. I dropped the phone. I'm like screaming in the middle of Times Square. And, Times Square was not Times Square what it is today. Like Times Square was like, hookers and strippers and drug dealers and, the whole thing. I remember turning around and literally the first person that was there, I grab and hug. And they probably thought I was like nuts or trying to rob them or whatever. And I'm screaming and I'm grabbing them and hugging them. And we signed a record deal. And it's crazy. We signed to Chrysalis Records before they even had an urban division. We did our deal before Wild Pitch was a part of them thing. You know, we did our deal probably 3 months before they did the Wild Pitch deal for Gangstar. And we were actually signed through the pop department, which was, you know, weird, right? That they signed this rap group. But crazy times.
What was that deal? What did it consist of? How many albums were they offering you?
You know, it was probably, I think it was probably like 4 albums. The budget for the album was like nothing. It was like 50,000. Not that that's nothing, but you know what I mean? In terms of a record deal, especially back then, it wasn't a lot. And, you know, it was interesting because not having an urban division, you know, within their sphere of things and promotion and stuff like that, I think that was definitely like detrimental. You know what I mean? So, you know, when the urban division did come aboard Chrysalis, they looked at us as like, oh, we're the pop guys. Like we were signed by the pop department. So, you know, pop radio, got to take these guys out. You know, even though, I mean, Clark Kent did all the scratches on the album. You know, we did Yo MTV Raps, which was like an incredible dream. And you know, it's amazing that the record deal triggered then a publishing deal. So I signed a publishing deal as a writer with MCA Music Publishing, which then became Universal Music Publishing. But I remember, you know, me and TDK, we definitely had some issues, as a lot of groups have. And we did a show, and I remember it very well. So Happy Walters and Amanda Shear, back in like 89, 88, 90, had these like underground rap concerts, and it was called Car Wash. And they'd find these huge venues, and, you know, definitely like, you know, like a scene from a movie. Definitely like, you know, underground, crazy hype, you know, packed to the gills, you know, hip hop concerts. And I remember doing this one show. Ed and Dre from MTV were hosting the show. Ultramagnetic were performing. Brand Nubian were performing. LL was performing. You know, and I was like, you know, wow, wow, you know, and then we were performing. And it was that show that when I got off stage, I was like, I don't want to be in this group anymore. You know, it was crazy, honestly. I just didn't want to, I wanted to still rap, and I still wanted to produce, you know, like I was in love with hip hop and still am in love with hip hop. But it was that day, it was that show that literally I was like, this group is over. And,
was the album already complete at this time?
Yeah. So the album was out. You know, we had.
Let's go back just in time, just a little bit, and work our way up to the. So what was those recording sessions like with you and TDK during those? Okay.
Amazing. I mean, great. Really amazing. You know, again, we recorded everything primarily at Floyd studio. Then when we got signed, we shifted everything down to the studio called Platinum Island, which was down on Broadway. You know, it was the big studio. You know, we were like, we made it, right? You know, it was amazing. I mean, I don't know if you remember this rapper, Shazzy, female rapper.
Yeah.
So somehow we linked up with Shazzy. You know, Dante Ross was, you know, her A&R over at Elektra. And it's funny, Dante and I now are cool, you know, over DM and stuff like that. But like, we definitely didn't like each other then. There was like something definitely crazy. And so Shazzy did a feature on the album, which was super cool. She's on this record called Girls, Girls, Girls. You know, where I'm basically, you know, talking about girls and she's talking about me, basically. But the recording was amazing. You know, it was amazing to have guys like Clark Kent on the record. You
Daddy-O did a remix, right?
Oh, 100%. And that was crazy too. So literally I was up in his studio with him and Kadar Massenberg. And I used to think that they were brothers. Like I was told that they were brothers, but then I was told like even a couple of years ago that they're not actually blood brothers, but it's crazy because they're both short. So and Stetsasonic was one of my favorite groups. So when Daddy-O agreed to do a remix, I was like, this is crazy, you know? And by the way, I also thought it was really going to blow up, you know, like I thought like, yo, we're going to be the biggest thing ever, you know? And you know, when you go on UMTV Raps and you get interviewed by Ed and Dre, like you feel like you made it. Like there's nothing more, especially back then, there was nothing more big that you could do than that. But you know, like all things, you know, I think the hype or the expectations exceeded, you know, what the numbers were. And it just kind of fell apart, you know, and then, you know, I stayed friends with Clark Kent because Clark Kent in, you know, subsequent albums, you know, did a lot of cuts for me. He was in the video Prophets of Unity, which was shot by this company called H Gun, which at the time they were like the buzzing, you know, hip, you know, video company. Yeah, man, it was amazing times.
So what was the reaction like when that album finally came out?
You know, critically, it got a great reaction. Critically, so the reviewers really liked it. I think they loved the messaging, honestly, behind it. I don't think that the public was ready for the messaging, honestly. I don't think hip hop kids wanted to hear about a dude from the Bronx, you know, hanging with a white kid that went to private school. And certainly kids that went to private school didn't want to hear about a private school kid hanging out with a dude from the South Bronx. So I think we were early, you know, I think we were early on it. You know, obviously, you know, my whole team loved the record. You know what I mean? Like our break dancers, you know, we did a big special with Dee from Pump It Up. You know, she did a big interview with us. We did Rap City. We did a thing on, I don't remember the name of the show, but we went on BET and did an interview and a Q&A on one of their, you know, shows. It was one of their talk shows. I don't remember the name of it, but it was actually really compelling because, you know, one of the questions was about obviously like racial relations, like, you know, black and white dude, you know, rapping together. And then it got into like other relationships, like, you know, black male, white female, or black female, white male. And it was kind of crazy because, you know, we were coming from a place of, listen, it all starts with respect. You got to respect everybody, right? For who they are and what they do, what color they are. It doesn't matter. You got to respect. We're all humans. We all bleed red. And it was amazing because the audience, a lot of people in the audience didn't really want to like hear that, you know? So you know, again, I guess we were too early, you know, in it, but it didn't stop me from wanting to continue because I loved music and I loved hip hop so much that, you know, when the group finally ended, I felt like this is just my beginning. By the way, I feel like right now it's just my beginning too.
That's great. Absolutely.